Hi, this is Dana with Dana Meyer Consulting, and today's topic is about teams that are going through a lot of change. Now, it doesn't really matter for this conversation as to what size your organization is. It's more about the fact that you're going through rapid growth. And with rapid growth comes growing pains. Now, growing pains aren't something that are much fun, even as kids, and they're definitely not fun inside of an organization. But there are things that you can do to make those growing pains a lot smaller, and in some cases, you may even be able to mitigate them by putting some well-known best practices in place ahead of time so that you don't really need to go through that pain and suffering. So one of the ones that I see a lot with teams that especially are maybe fairly small, very cohesive, work really well together, especially at the beginning, is around roles and responsibilities and even accountability. Now, this is almost an innate shared knowledge when you have a smaller team because you all know each other, you even know each other's expertise, you've probably worked together in the past, you have a sense of who does what. It doesn't need to be written on a piece of paper or, heaven forbid, a PowerPoint slide. But inevitably, things start moving and things are going well, and then you hire a couple of people, and then you're hiring more people. And while this group is still really clear about roles, responsibilities, it's like that shared knowledge. You know, the more people you add into the mix, you cannot make the assumption that everyone is on the same page in terms of roles, responsibilities, who's reporting to whom, who's accountable for getting what done by when. And it's just as simple as taking the time to kind of document it. Doesn't have to even be that detailed. And if you can do it on one page, all the better. Because it just helps, especially new people coming on board, to get really clear about, one, what's their role, where do they fit in the picture, but especially for leaders that may be founders or we're doing a whole lot of everything. It's also the opportunity to be much more strategic in where you're choosing to focus your efforts. So smaller businesses or businesses that are growing rapidly, people that have been in other organizations have a really broad skill set, and they can do stuff over here on the strategy side. They can deal with customer networking. They can bring in new business. They're even, doing IT infrastructure. That is not an efficient use of a senior person's time when you really do start to scale to a point where that person's genius is where they should be spending the majority of their time and not trying to be a Jack or Jill of all trades. So by going through a conversation during this growth space, it's an opportunity, especially for the leadership team, to decide who is going to spend the majority of their time in this area, and by doing that, it creates a gap. So yes, that person was doing all this other stuff. It is not an efficient ROI for them to be doing that. So does that mean hiring someone? Does that mean having one of the new people pick that up? Does that mean having someone else pick it up? So it's a really simple issue, but you can see that this really simple question brings up a whole lot of issues. Now, in my experience, I have seen that typically what happens is that the conversation goes, we're okay, it's all good, everyone's on the same page, and then a crisis happens, a client falls off, a big misstep happens, a crisis occurs. And all of a sudden, it's time to point a finger. And when that finger pointing starts to happen, it becomes very clear that folks were not clear who was on point. And it's a really unfortunate thing because it was not ill-intentioned. People did not set up to drop the ball, but inevitably the ball dropped and this one may not have bounced, like it may have just broken and it couldn't be repaired. So by having gone back in time when it was the right time to have that conversation and to just basically spell it out and say, this is the way we're going to structure it for right now. Let's give it 90 days, 6 months. Let's see how it goes. If we need to re-engineer it or tweak it a little bit. But it's something that helps you, especially as you're growing your team, to just continue to scale up, to keep everyone on the same page, to look at where your new team members need to come from in order to fill some of these strategic gaps. And so that is just one example around team roles and responsibilities and the systems with which you're going to hold these team members accountable, because the original members have a relationship and a bonded relationship that typically holds them accountable to one another on an almost unconscious level. But when you start bringing new people in, that's more of an employment relationship. Like that, you have to build up the trust with. You have to set those expectations. You have to have more give and take on the goals and the performance discussions. And that is what starts to happen with smaller companies that are growing, is that they start to see that as a burden and they want to keep it informal. And again, what will happen is that a ball will be dropped or an employee will do something not correct and they'll fire the person. And what in reality is happening is that maybe the employee was culpable, but the management and the way they were onboarded and trained and set up for success or not, with clear goals, responsibilities, feedback, ongoing development, is equally culpable on the company side. And again, from my perspective, it's no judgment, but it is about setting time aside to say, we're at a tipping point. And the way in which we got to where we're at are not the systems and the ways in which we're going to be successful in the future going forward. And now is the time to be proactive before some of these really well-known crises happen, to set some time aside to look at some of the things from a team perspective, from a process perspective, from a systems perspective, that will allow for us to scale up in a way that's a right fit for us. You don't have to do every single thing that's in those, organizational academic handbooks. That is not the case. And the work I do is really helping you to go shopping for the tools that you need now, the tools that can wait, the tools that you probably aren't going to need based on your industry or maybe the skill sets of some of the leaders that you have. But what is not okay when you're going through a rapid growth cycle is to avoid these conversations. And what is fascinating, I find, is that it's far easier for people to have conversations about bringing in new IT systems, bringing in new financial systems, hardware. But when you try to do those same conversations about the people side of running the business and keeping people motivated and the performance levels up and setting goals and reward systems, everyone wants to go to lunch. Like nobody is wanting to sit down and have those conversations. But think about it. Nothing in your company is going to get done unless it is through a human being. I have not seen even a highly mechanized company that does not have the human impact of someone deciding to push that button to turn it on, or the R&D person who chooses to give their best effort. And if those people are not motivated and aligned with the vision, the strategy, the goals, and the values of that organization, you are not getting the ROI on your team. And when you reach that critical point, when you are growing quickly, it is imperative that you take the time to set aside what your next game plan is for scaling that up. So with that, I hope you found a couple of tips helpful. Again, share these videos with colleagues that may be in a slightly different industry or business than what you're in, who may be exactly in this kind of like growing pain phase. We all need to help each other out. There's just a wealth of wisdom in our community. And oftentimes I find that when people need it the most, they really hunker down and it's hard to get to them. But when a trusted friend sends them information or kind of helps them to say, hey, you know what, you don't have to do this alone, like what a gift. Like really, what a gift. Because we're all working so hard these days. And I'd really hope for us that we can work smarter and support one another so that we can have more successful businesses and have really high-performing teams without so many paper cuts and without so many ups and downs. So with that, I wish you a really great day, and I wish you the best of success in your business and with your teams. This is Dana signing off.